said that those epic notes we looked at before were subject to interpretation, right?
The specific sentence you had me look at?
Yeah, or just generally, correct?
I'm not familiar with what else was said in the rest of it, so I don't know if I would apply that across.
Okay. In the one we looked at, though, you would agree that it was subject to interpretation?
The sentence we had looked at, I didn't read the whole email.
Did you ever reach out to Neva Schwartz concerning the interpretation of it?
I don't recall.
You know if Julie Jackson ever did?
I don't know.
When it was transmitted to you, Ms. Jackson said that this isn't what we wanted. Do you know what she meant by that?
I don't recall.
That's a mischaracterization of the email. That's not what the email says.
Yeah, I don't think she said that specifically. She said, not what I expected, I believe.
What I expected. Okay. Do you know what she said meant by this is not what I expected?
As I stated before, no, I do not.
Did you inquire?
I don't recall.
That's all I have for this witness. Thank you.
Anything for you, Attorney Mitchell?
Nope, nothing further. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you for your testimony, Ms. Oliver. I don't know if we have any additional witnesses. We might have one more witness. I'm just asking the witnesses not to talk about your testimony until after the hearing is completed.
Okay, will do. Thank you very much.
So thank you.
Thanks,
You can leave at this point. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Have a good day.
You too. Thanks. And then Attorney Mitchell, were you going to have Ildigo testify?
Yes.
Okay. She's not appearing yet. Did you want to call her right away? Does anybody need a break? What are you guys thinking?
Might be nice to have just get something to eat.
So maybe take like a short break then?
Okay.
Yeah, I if I recall from this morning, it seems like a lifetime ago. I told her to be ready around 1:30.
Okay.
So that would actually work well. So I can get in touch with her if we want to start a little earlier than that.
Do you guys want to take until 1:30? It's about almost 1 o'clock now. Yeah. Come back at 1:30 and then have her do her testimony.
Okay.
All right, sounds good. So we'll
Sounds
take a
like
break
we're-
until 1:30 then.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank
Thank
you.
Judge.
All right, can you hear me okay, Ms. Hubert?
Yes, I can.
All right. We're going to start with having Attorney Mitchell ask you some questions. The attorney for Dr. McMurray may have some questions for you, Attorney Plantinga. There may be some back and forth where they have some additional questions, but I just want to make sure. It looks like you're just not by a desk or anything, but I just wanted to make sure, do you have any documents in front of you pertaining to this case at all?
The only thing I have is what you guys are going to show me online. I don't have any printouts of any sort.
Okay, yeah, I will show you the documents if there's questions that the attorneys ask you about the documents. So I will bring those up, and I usually ask if people can see them. So if there's any problem with me where you need me to zoom in or make things larger, just let me know that. And if you don't understand a question or have a question about something, just let us know as well. I know we've been having a little bit of an echo during the hearing today, so I don't know if you're picking up on that or not, but if it becomes difficult for you to hear us, just let me know that as well.
Sounds good. It's very faint.
Okay, that's good. All right then, so before we start, I do need to swear you in if you'll raise your right hand. Do you solemnly, sincerely, and truly declare and affirm that the testimony you will give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, you can put your hand down. And then could you just state your name and spell it for us, please?
Ildiko Huppertz, ILDIKO HUPPERTZ.
All right, Attorney Mitchell, whenever you're ready, you can begin.
Thank you, Judge, and thank you, Ulrika, for being here. If you could start by identifying your current employer.
ProHealth Care.
And what is your current position with ProHealth Care?
I am Vice President of Talent and Organizational Effectiveness.
And how long have you held that position?
I was promoted into the position in the spring of 2018.
And what do you do in terms of job duties and responsibilities in your position?
I provide strategic direction and management of talent acquisition, business advising, and learning and development, and leadership development, which also includes employee relations.
Okay. Does human resources fall under that umbrella?
Correct. That's actually all of that is part of human resources.
Right. Okay. So when did you begin at ProHealth Care?
I had joined ProHealth Care August of 2013. I was hired as a director of organizational effectiveness.
Okay. And can you walk us through your job history with ProHealth Care?
Sure. Well, I was hired as, like I said, as a director of organizational effectiveness, which was part of HR. My responsibilities included oversight of the talent acquisition team, leadership development, and employee relations.
Okay.
So it's not much different than what I do today, except my current role as a VP has expanded.
And can you describe your post-high school educational background, please?
I have a bachelor's degree in business administration with postgraduate certification from UW Milwaukee Sheldon Lubar School as a strategic leadership.
Okay. And did you hold any?
I'm sorry. I also wanted to say I'm also an executive coach.
Thank you.
Sure.
Can you describe your HR experience before joining ProHealth Care?
Absolutely. I have over 25 years experience in HR. Many of those years have been in a healthcare environment. Do you need me to list where I worked? Or pretty much I've been a director for many, many years. And initially I started as a recruiter and moved my way up along the way to where I am today. But it has always been in HR and 90% of the time in some form of healthcare.
And that's been for approximately 25 years?
At least, yes.
Okay. Do you consider yourself experienced in terms of conducting employee investigations and making decisions to terminate employees?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Do you have any clinical expertise or education in psychology or neuropsychology?
No, I do not.
Okay. Do you know Pam McMurray, Ms. Huppertz?
I know that she was an employee of ProHealth Care, and I had met with her once, so I can't say I know her. I know of her.
Okay. And you said that you met with her once.
Correct.
Okay. Dr. McMurray described a meeting between you two occurring in September of 2014. Is that the meeting that you're referring to?
Yes, I believe she requested a meeting with me way back when, in 2014.
And who else? Was anybody else besides you and Dr. McMurray present at that meeting?
Yes, I believe she brought a witness along, and the person's name was Diane Mosnick. I don't recall what her role was.
Okay. Dr. McMurray, during her examinations, testified that she raised several concerns with you during that meeting, including concerns about Dr. Schwartz. Do you recall any such conversations taking place during the September 2014 meeting?
Honestly, what I recall is Dr. McMurray talking in circles. She appeared, though, that she had a personal animosity against her leader and her peers because she was being replaced by someone else as a clinical director. That's what I recall.
And who do you recall her director being that she had animosity
Jackson.
against?
I believe her leader was Julie Jackson, and she made the changes in the department.
And you testified that it appeared that she had personal animus against Ms. Jackson for replacing her as clinical director?
It appeared so.
And what is that based on? Your interpretation, what is it based on?
The tone and the fact that she raised her concerns about someone else being placed in that role that she felt wasn't necessarily qualified to be in that role.
And do you recall why Dr. McMurray felt Dr. Schwartz was unqualified to lead?
I believe it had to do something with his educational background, that she felt he wasn't qualified.
Okay. Do you recall whether at that meeting in September 2014, Dr. McMurray raised any concerns about Dr. Schwartz's clinical skills?
That I remember that she said that he was too junior to be a clinical director.
Do you recall her expanding on that subject or concern?
Sure. I think, let me just rethink again. I think he was working on his board certification. She felt that he was too junior, and she was very concerned that Dr. Eben Schwartz was practicing in an area without appropriate supervision.
Do you recall what practice area that was?
Neuro-oncology, I believe.
Okay. How did the meeting with Dr. McMurray and Diane Mosnick conclude?
I wasn't very clear what Dr. McMurray wanted me to do as it related to all of the concerns that she had raised. But with every individual who comes forward and brings something to HR, obviously I would go back and investigate whatever concerns that I heard, I would investigate.
So to summarize, according to your recollection, she raised concerns about Dr. Schwartz not having his board certification.
Correct.
About him being too junior to be the clinical director.
Correct.
And Dr. McMurray also expressed concern about Dr. Schwartz practicing in the area of neuro-oncology. Is that correct?
Correct.
And at the conclusion of that meeting, you said that you looked into those concerns. What kind of investigation did you conduct?
I had to go back to have conversations with Julie Jackson, who was the director over the area, and Sue Oliver, who was the HR business partner who reported to me. And apparently she has been working with Julie Jackson on some concerns that have been raised by Dr. Murray previous, apparently. I didn't know more about that. And the investigation uncovered that the claims that Dr. Murray made related to Eben Schwartz really pointed to her having a personal animus against him. I evaluated the background to her claim and honestly found zero basis for any of it. Basically, Julie made a decision to make a change as a leader, which she has the right to do.
And your conclusion, based on your conversations with those individuals, was that there was a underlying personal animus between Dr. McMurray and Dr. Schwartz and Julie Jackson.
It certainly appeared that way, yes.
As to the, well, strike that. Were you familiar at all with a condition, a job condition, explicit job condition that was imposed by ProHealth Care on Dr. Schwartz to obtain his board certification?
No, I was not.
Is that a job condition ProHealth Care typically imposes on otherwise licensed practitioners?
It depends on the role, yes, it can.
Yeah,
But I wasn't familiar enough with the role to say whether that was necessary or not. Again, I believe that Dr. Schwartz was supervised while with an expert oncologist at the time that he was working in that department.
So are you referring to your investigation into
Yes,
into Dr. Schwartz's practice in neuro-oncology?
yes,
That concern that Dr. McMurray brought to you during your meeting together?
yes. I believe that Dr. Crower was supervising Dr. Schwartz's work.
And that, and your belief is based on what?
Based on he was based on the fact that he was working on his boards, and for certain areas he needed to be supervised as it related by another person.
And you understood through your conversations with Julie Jackson and Sue Oliver and whoever else that Dr. Crower was working with Dr. Schwartz in the neuro-oncology clinic?
That's correct. They confirmed that as part of my investigation.
Okay. Are you aware of any disciplinary meeting between Dr. McMurray, Julie Jackson, and Sue Oliver that occurred in October 2015?
Yes, I am.
Did you attend that meeting?
No, I did not.
And how do you know about it?
I know about it because Julie Jackson alerted me to the underlying issues that were precipitating the meeting. I discussed those issues with Julie and also with Sue Oliver. Because she worked for me, she kept me abreast. And both of them told me that there was a meeting happening.
Okay. And what is your understanding of what caused the disciplinary meeting?
Some bullying behavior that was displayed by Dr. McMurray in an email that she wrote to Dr. Schwartz.
Judge, if we could show the witness respondent exhibit 3, please.
Just 1 second. Can you see that document?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Do you recognize this email, Ms. Hubbard?
I
can scroll down
recognize.
or make it bigger.
I can see it.
Okay.
Okay.
I can scroll down a little bit if you want to read it.
I believe this is the email that I wasn't copied on the email, but this is the email that the Julie and Sue were talking about that led to the discipline because of the tone of the email was such that it was belittling and bullying.
So is it your testimony that you're not copied on this email, so you receive it from Dr. McMurray, but Julie Jackson and Sue Oliver showed it to you?
They did not show me the email. They told me about the content of the email.
Okay.
I don't remember seeing it, but I definitely remember the content of the discussion based on what was
And what concerns did Julie Jackson and Sue Oliver share with you about the content of the email in your discussions?
They expressed concern that Dr. McMurray was bullying Dr. Schwartz in this email, and that it was part of a larger trend of a personal animus toward him, stemming from the termination of Diane Mosnick and his appointment as a clinical director.
And this is the email that prompted the performance evaluation meeting, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Judge, if we could show the witness respond to Exhibit 5, please.
Okay. Do you see that document?
Yes, I do. Now that it's turned the right way.
Are you familiar with this document?
Yes, it's a performance documentation that is used in our organization.
Okay. And do you understand it to be a result of Dr. McMurray's October 1st email to Emmett Schwartz?
Yes, it was a consequence of the October 1 email we just discussed, based on the fact that the conversations being defensive and displaying negative and nonverbal and verbal communications as stated in the evaluation.
Is the content of this written warning consistent with your understanding of the issues of Dr. McMurray's behavior towards Dr. Schwartz?
Yes.
At the time? In your experience, do HR representatives typically attend disciplinary meetings of this type?
No, that is very unusual. Typically, only the leader and the person that's being disciplined go through the expectations and the corrective action that is expected.
So do you know why an HR representative here, Sue Oliver, attended the meeting?
Yes, Julie Jackson wanted HR representation because she continued to feel that the Dr. Murray ongoing irrational behavior needed to be witnessed.
Is that a request that you agreed with in principle?
Yes.
You felt it was appropriate to have a third-party HR person there as a witness?
In this particular case, yes.
You said that you were not at the meeting, but did Sue Oliver report back to you? I'll strike that.
Yeah.
Sue Oliver reported to you, correct?
Correct.
After this meeting, did Sue Oliver report back to you on how the meeting went?
Yes, Sue was stating that Dr. McMurray raised her voice at her, pointed her finger at her, and basically bullied her in a voice that was inappropriate.
Did Sue or Julie Jackson report to you anything else about the meeting in terms of what Dr. McMurray said or their impressions of the meeting?
In that meeting, although the focus was on outlining the expectation of appropriate behavior of Dr. McMurray continued to express her ongoing complaint about Dr. Schwartz, that he was too junior to the clinical direction, that he hasn't completed his boards, and kept going on and on about it. Again, she continued to deflect and not take any responsibility for her behavior. Instead, she continued to focus on degrading the talent of others and questioning the leadership decisions.
Ms. Huberts, are you reading anything as you're answering these questions?
I have a couple of notes, yes.
Yeah, please turn your notes over. I want your
Should have.
testimony from what you recall, not from any notes that you have about this.
Sounds good.
Yeah, that was the judge's instruction at the beginning.
I had one little handwritten note. I had got rid of it.
Thank you.
Sure.
Let me, Judge, if we could show the witness exhibit 11, please. Respondent exhibit 11.
Okay, let me just turn it around. Okay, so that's R11.
Okay, at the top of this email, Ildiko, we see a email Dr. McMurray sent to you and Julie Jackson, the subject, patient incompetence. As we scroll through the email, there's an email thread, a larger email thread on the same subject matter. Just scroll so you are familiarized with the document. All right. Do you recognize this email thread?
I do.
And can you explain generally what is occurring, happening, being written about in this email thread?
This was related to Dr. Schwartz deeming a patient incompetent without doing an assessment. That was the focus of the email chain.
And it's your understanding of this email that Julie Jackson was following up with Dr. McMurray to obtain more information on that concern she raised about this patient incompetence issue?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know why Julie Jackson copied you on this email?
Because she felt it was an HR issue, a continuing of the bullying in the email chain and the accusations toward Dr. Eben Schwartz.
Can you interpret anything in this email as Dr. McMurray expressing or raising any sort of concern about Dr. Schwartz's clinical competency?
I did not.
Did you see this as a concern that was unrelated to clinical competency?
Can you repeat the question? I didn't hear you very well.
Did you interpret this concern as a concern unrelated to Dr. Schwartz's providence of clinical care?
Yes.
All right. I want to jump ahead a few years. Dr. McMurray was terminated on November 2nd, 2017, correct?
That is correct.
Were you involved in Dr. McMurray's termination?
I was not physically present, no, but I was part of the decision, yes.
Were you a part of the investigation process leading to the termination decision?
Sue Oliver was part of the investigation process, and she kept me abreast of all the issues that she had found.
To what extent, strike that. Is HR involved in most termination decisions at ProHealth Care? Is that a normal practice?
HR is involved in all terminations at ProHealth Care. We basically investigate. Business advisors are responsible for investigating, obtaining facts, looking at the facts, corroborating it, talking to witnesses. And once all the facts are together, then it's presented to the leader. It is the leader's ultimate decision to move forward with the decision to terminate based on the facts.
So is it the policy then of ProHealth's HR department not to give its blessing or endorse a termination decision unless there's sufficient evidence, corroborating evidence to support the reason to terminate?
Absolutely. There has to be valid reasons in order for a leader to be moving forward a termination.
Have you ever told a leader who was moving for termination that there was insufficient evidence to terminate?
That there's insufficient evidence? Yes, I have. Yes, I
So
have.
the opposite has occurred, where you advised
Correct.
a leader at ProHealth not to terminate because there was not sufficient evidence. Okay.
Yep.
What is your understanding of the reason why ProHealth terminated Dr. McMurray?
There was sufficient evidence of bullying, of raising the voice, and inappropriate behavior toward peers, toward the leader, toward my own HR person. And it was a behavior that we do not accept at ProHealth by any member of the organization. And if it's consistently exhibited, we move forward that the person is not a good fit. And therefore, we move toward termination.
Okay. Judge, I'd like to show the respondent exhibit 45 to the witness, please.
All right, can you see that?
Yes, I can.
And Judge, could you scroll through the attached epic messages?
Is there any you want me to focus in on, or?
I would just like my witness to familiarize herself with the content of these messages.
Okay.
I believe these are messages, copies of messages between a scheduling person and Dr. Murray. And concerns of documentation.
Okay. Judge, thank you. Looks like we've reached the end of the road. Could we go back up to the first page of this?
Sure.
Thank you. Are you familiar, Ms. Edwards, with a medical coder named Neva Schwartz?
Yes, I know of her.
Okay. Can you explain what this email is from Julie Jackson, dated October 19th to you and Sue Oliver?
Yes, Julie had forwarded the email pointing out the ongoing behavior of bullying that Neva felt, and the attached documents you just scrolled through were examples of notes that were perceived, and it seemed very intimidating.
At this point, October 19th, 2017, was HR already involved in an investigation into reports of behavioral issues involving Dr. McMurray?
Yes, I believe that started way back in from the moment that at least I became involved back in 2013. I think there were things going on. I wasn't involved in every case because Sue Oliver was the business advisor, but apparently this type of behavior continued, and it came to the forefront again in 2017, where Julie felt that she needed to loop me in.
And when did Julie approximately loop you in the year 2017?
Dated October 19, 2017. That's the date of this note.
This date of this note. Are you aware of whether there was an HR investigation earlier in October 2017?
I believe that there were investigations prior to that by Sue Oliver of many other different claims. Again, issues with Eben, issues with behaviors. I believe there was an investigation related to inappropriate behavior in a meeting with Ms. Jessica Zurcher, if I recall correctly. Both verbal and nonverbal behavior was an issue, an ongoing issue.
Okay. Judge, if I could show the witness responding to exhibit 15. Ms. Hubbard, do you recognize this document? It's an email from Neva Schwartz to Julie Jackson dated October 24th, 2017.
No, I did not see the email, but I was told about the email by Julie Jackson.
So you didn't see the email, but Julie Jackson explained the content of the email to you?
Yes.
Okay, so based on your conversations with Julie Jackson, reading through this email, is the content of this email consistent with your understanding of what was going on between Dr. McMurray and Neva Schwartz?
Yes.
And from an HR perspective, many years in HR, what is your opinion of the content of this email from Neva about Dr. McMurray?
Obviously, Neva was upset that Dr. McMurray was responding to her with attitude. She appeared to be impatient to her questions, and she continued to attack her verbally. And as I read this, she felt that she could not. I'm sorry, I'm trying to read. Exaggerates her experience of a discussion, and her email messages make her feel not worthy. So again, she felt like she was being belittled. Neva felt like she was being belittled by Dr. Murray based on the notes that she sent to Julie.
And was this your understanding of the concerns that Neva raised in October 2017?
Yes.
So these aren't just your impressions sitting here today. These are your impressions from October 2017.
Yes.
Judge, if I may show the witness respondent exhibit 16. Ms. Hubbard, this is an email from Jessica Zurcher to Julie Jackson dated October 27, 2017. Do you recognize this document?
I did not see the document, no, but again, Julie made me aware of the document. Again, it continues to support the fact that Dr. McMurray's behavior appears to be hostile, or at least perceived to be hostile, and her behavior continues to create an environment of disrespect.
And so, like the last email we looked at involving Neva Schwartz, or from Neva Schwartz, Julie explained the content of this email to you, and you were aware of the content of this email in
Yes.
2017?
Yes.
So your interpretations, your recollections of the concerns raised by Jessica Zurcher in this email, you had formulated an interpretation of those issues and concerns in October 2017?
Yes.
Okay. And again, from an HR perspective, what is your opinion of the content of the behaviors that Jessica is describing in this email?
Again, it is not something that we would expect a professional to exhibit. It is unacceptable, and collegiality is missing, in my opinion, based in this email.
Okay. I'd like to show the witness responding to exhibit 44, please, Judge. We scroll down a bit. Ms. Hubbard, this is an email chain between Dr. Colchin and Julie Jackson from October 4th, 2017.
Okay.
Do you know Dr. Colchin?
Yes.
And who is Dr. Colchin?
She was the VP for medical, for the medical office.
That'd be the medical staff office?
Medical staff office, yes, sorry.
Okay. There's an attachment to her email. We can scroll down.
I see it.
It's called Medical Staff Code of Conduct Policy. Are you familiar? Are you familiar with the Medical Staff Code of Conduct Policy?
I am not familiar with this particular document. It is not an HR document, it is a medical staff policy. However, it is, if I look at this curve, it looks like it would be aligned with the code of conduct policy of the overall organization.
So for example, looking at the number 1 under Roman numeral 1, policy statement 1, quote, collaboration, communication, and collegiality are essential for the provision of safe and competent patient care. Is that consistent with the HR principle and organizational principle of ProHealth care generally?
It is. It really, it states respect, communication, and collaboration.
If you could scroll down a little further. Dr. Colchin highlighted this passage of an example of inappropriate conduct being the highlighted section that you see. Just reading the words of the page on the medical staff policy here, degrading or demeaning comments regarding patients, families, nurses, physicians, hospital personnel, or the hospital as being an example of inappropriate conduct. Just reading that statement, is that statement of inappropriate conduct consistent with HR's
Yes, it is.
policy for all ProHealth care employees?
Yes, those are against the values of our organization.
Okay,
And yes, it's in alignment.
You speak of the values of the organization. What are some of the values of the organization that that are aligned between this document and HR's policies in the wider ProHealth care organization?
The values is clearly respect, accepting differences, and collaboration, and quality of care is very highly valued within our organization.
Okay. And is the highlighted portion consistent with your interpretation of what Dr. McMurray's behavior, the issues with Dr. McMurray's behavior were presenting at the time leading to her termination?
Yes, based on the evidence that we have seen and heard and the investigation, her behavior was in alignment.
Okay. Judge, if I could show the witness respondent exhibit 39. And 44 was already in the record, correct? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. If scrolling through this document, Ms. Huppertz, you recognize this email chain?
Yes.
Okay. And this would be an email chain between you, Sue Oliver of HR, and Julie Jackson, dated October 20th, 2017.
That is correct.
And can you, well, first, you write to Julie Jackson and Sue Oliver, that email in the center of the page. You ask, quote, do we need to have Karen K at the meeting, end quote. Is Karen K, are you referring to Dr. Colchin, Dr. Karen Colchin?
Yes, Dr. Karen Colchin. Because it was related to a provider, I asked the question, should we have her in the meeting?
Okay. And is it your understanding that Dr. Colchin saw Dr. McMurray's issues as behavioral concerns for HR to consider?
Yes, I believe Dr. Colchin even said she did not feel she needed to participate because this is more of an HR issue.
Okay.
So
if I could show the witness responding exhibit 37, please. Okay. Scrolling down to, just so we can get Julie Jackson there. Okay. Do you recognize this email exchange, Ms. Hubbard?
yes, I do. This
Can you
was an email based on Julie was ready to make a change in the department and with the termination of Dr. McMurray, and she was going to was asking our opinion on the communication to the team after the termination of Dr. McMurray. And she sent it on to us to review.
And this is you providing input the day before her, Dr. McMurray's termination of what that message should be?
Yes.
So by November 1st, 2017, were you content based on the information, evidence that had been gathered by Sue Oliver, Julie Jackson, and others in their investigation? Were you satisfied that there was enough corroborating evidence to move forward with Dr. McMurray's termination?
Yes, I fully supported the decision.
Did you ever talk about with Sue Oliver or Julie Jackson or anybody for that matter about Dr. Schwartz's clinical skills or any complaints Dr. McMurray might have raised previously about Dr. Schwartz's clinical skills in making the decision to terminate Dr. McMurray?
I don't believe that I honestly do not recall whether we had discussed that in greater detail. It played into it because I am certain that the pattern of behavior and bullying just continued over the years. It's the pattern of behavior that leads to termination.
Did you ever discuss, any specific complaint or say that, as a contributing factor that any, for example, peer review request or anything of the like, request for peer review, did that enter your decision-making calculus at all?
Yes, essentially what led to the ultimate decision by Julie was ongoing irrational behavior, demeaning comments toward others. Dr. McMurray was violating the code of conduct as it was outlined in what she was given as a provider. And Julie felt that Dr. McMurray terminated herself based on how she behaved. All Julie was doing is holding her accountable.
Okay. So if you were to describe the reasons why ProHealth Care terminated Dr. McMurray, what would they be?
Her ongoing demeaning comments, I believe the way that her documentation played into effect, And again, belittling others and being disrespectful.
Okay,
And her bullying behavior, obviously.
okay. Judge, I'd like to move Exhibit 37, responding Exhibit 37 into the record.
Any objections?
No objection.
Okay, R37 is in.
Okay, that's all for now.
All right, Attorney Blantinga, you can go ahead with your questioning of the witness.
Ms. Hubbards, you talked about documentation playing into the decision to terminate Pam McMurray, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. And that would be documentation not only of things that Pam McMurray authored, but also documentation of HR, right?
No, what Dr. McMurray authored
Okay.
or
But
did not author.
but you have you also consulted, just as we did now in your direct, documents that HR prepared that obviously you considered in the decision to terminate her, right? The write-up, for example?
The discipline?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And you know from your many years in HR that you want to document events that are significant in an employment history in the event someone is later disciplined, including terminated, correct?
Correct.
Right? I mean, you go to unemployment comp hearings, right? You've been to those before, right?
I don't go to them. I have a team that does, but yes, I've been to them before.
Okay, and what you would like to see of that team is that when they're asked about things, that they have contemporaneous notes, right? So they can tell the administrative law judge exactly what happened and how it happened, right?
There are conversations oftentimes I'm going to answer your question in this way. Whenever there is an issue with an individual, there are verbal conversations that are not always documented. Then there are further conversations that may or may not be documented, but some people may have notes on them. The compilation of the issues that come up ultimately get documented and used as documents to review as part of the investigation. So the performance documentation that Dr. McMurray was given was based on the previous investigation that Sue Oliver did as it related to the email, the bullying email that she had sent to Eben. And the way I perceived that email was very degrading.
Okay, let me ask you this question, Ms. Hubbard. You were there, sorry, you weren't there, but you had seen the disciplinary write-up, correct?
Yes.
And that disciplinary write-up showed prior instances, correct?
I would have to look back and see if it did.
Okay.
I don't remember which exhibit that was.
I think it's
that
R5.
Number 5. And it says dates of, do you see where it says dates of prior coaching?
Yes.
Iltico, let Victor ask the question, Iltico.
I apologize.
Do you know whether there is documentation of any of those instances of prior coaching?
I do not know.
Similarly, when you met with Diane Mosnick and Pam McMurray in September of 2014. Do you have notes of that meeting?
It was very difficult to take notes because I didn't know what the ask was from Dr. McMurray.
Well, certainly you can attend a meeting and then afterwards write your impressions in the same way you just related them in your oral testimony, right?
Yes,
Correct.
but I don't have any written notes.
Okay. And sometimes written notes would be helpful because now we're going back, what, about 7 years in time, correct?
Correct.
And your recollection of what happened at that meeting is certainly going to be better at that time than it would be 7 years later, right?
Perhaps.
Okay, well, almost certainly, right?
Perhaps.
Okay. This meeting, you said that Diane Mosnick was there as a witness, but she also participated, didn't she?
I don't recall her participating. When an individual comes and meets with us in HR, they can bring a witness, but they're a silent witness.
Did Diane Mosnick complain to you at that meeting about Julie Jackson bullying her?
No, she did not. Not that I recall.
Diane Mosnick was fired about a week later, wasn't she?
I do not recall that. She was terminated. I knew that.
Okay. And you would expect that Julie Jackson was involved in that decision, right?
If she reported to Julie Jackson, then Julie would have been involved in that decision, yes.
Okay. And Julie Jackson was the director of neuropsychology in 2014, right?
I believe she was.
Now, you said that Pam McMurray made some complaints or expressed concerns about Dr. Evan Schwartz, right?
Yes.
And you say you don't recall those specifically, but you do recall that she said he was practicing beyond the scope of his expertise.
That was her observation, yes.
Okay. And that observation was made with respect to neuro-oncology, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you're in HR, you don't have any experience in either neuropsychology or neuro-oncology, right?
I do not, and I don't ever claim to.
Okay. And if in fact he was practicing beyond the scope of his expertise, I'm not asking you to weigh in on that, but the concern could affect patient safety. Yes?
Object to speculation. She already said that she's not an expert on the matter.
You can answer the question.
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. If Evan Schwartz was in fact practicing beyond the scope of his expertise, that could have an effect on patient safety, right?
Not if he's supervised by another physician, and I stated that he was being supervised by another physician. So patient safety would not come into play.
Let me, would you agree as a general matter that if you have someone who's a medical professional working in a hospital setting like, Waukesha Memorial, part of the ProHealth Care umbrella, if you have a person who is practicing beyond their scope of expertise, that would risk patient safety, correct? Just as a general matter.
It could, yes, as a general matter.
If that person was being supervised, that might solve that problem, right?
Sure.
In fact, that's what you typically have with residents, correct?
I really can't say that for a fact. I can't speak to anything that's medically related.
Okay. Do you know the degree to which he was being supervised when he was practicing neuro-oncology? Did you make that determination?
I do not know the degree of which he was supervised.
Nor, because of your prior experience, would you know what degree is necessary, correct?
Correct.
Now, you have, I think it's called med staff, but like a med staffing office, correct?
Yes.
And I believe Dr. Karen Colchin is affiliated with that?
She's no longer employed with the organization.
Okay. Dr. Colchin's a medical doctor.
Yes.
And if there is a concern expressed by someone about someone, say, practicing beyond the scope of their expertise, that really should be in their domain, not in HR domain. Would you agree?
It depends on the situation. If the medical staff office deems the situation to warrant a review because they do peer reviews versus an HR situation, we only get brought in if the medical staff office feels that it's an HR issue.
Did you refer this over to Dr. Colchin, Pam McMurray's expression that Eben Schwartz was practicing beyond the scope of his expertise?
I did not, because I believe that he was practicing out of his scope of expertise.
But then again, as I said, and I think we agreed, someone on med staff would be a much better judge of that than someone in HR because they have the expertise. You do not, correct?
But I believe Dr. Colchin was involved because Julie Jackson brought her in. I was not involved in any of those conversations between Dr. Colchin and Julie, except for when Dr. Colchin indicated that it's more of an HR issue. She did not need to be part of a meeting. That's the only.
Well, part of the meeting, you're talking about the termination meeting.
Correct.
Right? That's in 2017.
Leading up to, yes.
And your conversation with Dr. McMurray was in September of 2014, right?
Yes.
Now, I understand that you have to sort of delegate in your role to people like Sue Oliver, who worked under you, right?
Yes, she did.
Okay. Do you know what information Sue Oliver had received from Dr. Schwartz about any sort of bullying or belittling behavior?
I do not recall, no.
If in fact you were investigating whether you as HR were investigating whether Dr. McMurray should be fired, you would want documentation of that, of your efforts to gather information, right?
Yes, and Sue Oliver had pulled that all together. And those were all presented today. We went through that.
Did you see, well, I know you didn't, but did you see any communications between Sue Oliver and Eben Schwartz as she's trying to gather information from Dr. Schwartz?
I did not see it, no.
So you said you're generally aware that she was reaching out to him, yet you're not aware of any documentation of when she reached out to him, what she asked about, or what he responded, right?
I wasn't micromanaging Sue. I was trusting her abilities to investigate appropriately and tell and guide the leader and keep him informed.
put it this way, in terms of the information that HR relied on, there's people better than yourself to answer that because you weren't, as you said, micromanaging, right?
That is correct.
Now, I think you earlier said that the med staff policy was similar to the handbook for ProHealth care, right?
To the policy of the code of conduct. We don't have a handbook, we just have policies.
That's right. Ed question. That you were shown the part of the med staff policy regarding the code of conduct, and you said that's similar to the language used by HR.
Yes.
You agree? And in fact, Attorney Mitchell showed you the portions of that med staff policy that were highlighted, right?
That is correct.
And that was highlighted by Dr. Colchin, not you.
Yes, it was. I have to assume it was.
Okay. And one could presume that it was highlighted because it was carefully considered, right?
It was carefully considered. I am certain that it, but she would highlight it only if she knew the facts from Julie. She wouldn't automatically come to the conclusion. There had to have conversations that Julie Jackson and others may have had with Dr. Colchin.
Okay, let me ask it this way then. Those portions of the med staff policy were highlighted, which I think is a fair inference that they were considered, right? They didn't highlight all of it, just certain portions.
Yes.
And then Dr. Colchin concluded that this didn't rise to the level. You'd agree with that?
Didn't rise to the level of her involvement?
Yes.
Correct, because she was medical staff.
Well, correct, but what I'm getting at is the code of conduct has similar language, both HR and mid staff, correct?
Yes.
Karen Colchin obviously considered that portion of the mid staff policy, correct? Because she highlighted it.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, and then she concluded that it didn't rise to the level, in her words. Yes.
Object mischaracterizing. Dr. Colchin says, I don't know if past behavior rises to that level or not. So it's not a definitive one way or the other. In that email, that particular email.
That's fair. She said she didn't know if it rose to the level. That's what the email says, right?
Do you want to see the email again?
I think that's exhibit 44.
Yeah.
There.
Yes, I don't know if it does clearly state, I don't know if parent behavior rises to that level or not.
Okay.
So she's not making any assumptions.
Right. She's undecided is what she's saying, right? As you understood it?
I understood it as she's weighing in. She's not really weighing in on the behavior. She's just saying it may or may not raise to that level. That's how I interpret it. That she's being neutral on it.
I see exhibit 45, please. Ms. Hubbards, you were copied in on this email.
Yes. You just showed.
And the email was from Julie Jackson.
Yes.
Julie Jackson indicated in her email, the attached document is not what I expected. Did she ever explain that to you, what she meant by that?
And let me recall. I don't know what Julie had asked for, so I don't know what she means by what I expected.
Why don't we scroll down toward the bottom of the document, which I think includes Julie Jackson's email to Neva Schwartz.
So I went too far. I went too far. Sorry about that.
It's all right. Doing a much better job than I could do.
Okay, I think, oh, I went really far. Okay.
Oh.
I think it's, it might be a different document that you're thinking of.
Okay.
Attorney Plantinga with Julie Jackson's email, and I don't remember which one that is at this point.
Okay. You received not only Julie Jackson's email, but also the attachments, right? And she references those attachments in the email.
Yes.
And your understanding is that the attachments are epic notes supplied by Neva Schwartz.
It appears that way.
Okay. Healthcare was using Epic in that time.
Yes, I believe they were.
Okay. Could we go to the first one? Did you consider this documentation by Neva Schwartz as just additional evidence of Pam McMurray bullying?
Yes.
Let's take this first one. It says, Neva, I did not intend to choose depression in charge capture. It should have been dementia. Right? So she starts it that way.
Okay.
In fact, you would agree that that's her taking responsibility in saying that she had made a mistake, right?
Frequently, based on the various, yes.
Okay. And that's inappropriate. If the doctor has made a mistake and a coder circles back and the doctor says, hey, that's on me, you'd expect that and you'd desire that, wouldn't you? In a communication between the two?
Yes, I would.
Okay. Then it says, in fact, I seem to recall I did indicate dementia, but apparently not. So she's not blaming Neva Schwartz in that, is she?
I don't think the conversations are blaming. I think the conversations that there is continuous ask and continuous issues with the documentation. It isn't a one-time thing.
Well, you're not to ask you to stay in your lane, but you're not a coder, are you?
No, I'm not a coder, but I've read all the various attachments previously.
There's only about 5 attachments. We can go down if you want.
That's what you showed me before.
Okay.
As evidence.
No, what my point is that are you saying that there were frequent problems with coding with Dr. McMurray more than other healthcare providers?
I cannot say that, no.
Okay. Go down a little further.
Here, keep going.
I think keep going. I'm looking for something that references a R441.89 code. It's kind of hard because it's really light. I think it's above that though. Ugh. Oh,
The first
Think-
one.
no, it's not the first one. I'm sorry. It's
Is there any after this
Yeah.
email? Let me keep going
Oh.
down once.
maybe that's why I'm not doing this right.
I don't know that there are, but
Yeah.
oh, there you go. R41.89.
Okay. This seems to be a discussion between Pam McMurray and Neva Schwartz about the proper code for subjective memory complaints.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. Does this show bullying or belittling?
I don't know if it's bullying, but it's a conversation between two people. It's
Right.
more about concerns about documentation and not necessarily bullying.
Okay. But these are presumably the epic notes chosen by Neva Schwartz to support what Julie Jackson was asking for, whatever that was, right?
It appears so, yes.
Did you ever talk to Evan Schwartz about any interactions with Julie Jackson?
No, I have not.
And I said talk, but did he ever correspond with you as head of HR about any problems he was having with Pam McMurray?
Not that I recall.
HR or you would be the logical place if someone had a problem with an employee that was not a med staff issue, right?
That is correct. Someone within our team, yes.
Okay. And are you aware of any communications as the head of the organization? Are you aware of any communications between any member of your team and Evan Schwartz about problems with Pam McMurray in 2000, let's say 2017
I am not.
or 2016?
I am confident there were conversation between Sue Oliver and Evan, perhaps, but I cannot for certain state that.
You say perhaps you don't know of any documentation about those conversations, right?
Right.
If I could just have a second. That's all I have. Thank you.
Anything else, Attorney Mitchell?
May I have 5 minutes just to look at my notes, just to make sure that I got everything I wanted?
Sure. We'll take a 5-minute break and come back at 2:50. Ms. Huberts, what I've been telling the people to do is just, if you want to step away for a few minutes, mute your sound and turn off your video. And then in 5 minutes, we'll all come back and turn everything back on.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, 5 minutes goes fast.
It does.
I know.
Just enough for a bio break.
That's right. All right. Oh, I just realized I didn't turn off my recording through that, so we're still on the record. Attorney Mitchell, did you have any questions for the witness?
Yes, Judge, just a few. Thank you. Ms. Hubbard, do you recall during your direct and then during cross-examination discussing September 2014 meeting between you and Drs. McMurray and Mosnick?
Yes.
And do you recall during cross-examination opposing counsel raising a concern that Dr. McMurray may have brought to you about Dr. Schwartz allegedly working outside of the scope of his expertise in neuro-oncology?
Yes.
After that meeting, you investigated that complaint and you learned that Dr. Schwartz, you testified that Dr. Schwartz was working in partnership with Dr. Crower, correct?
That is correct.
And you know Dr. Crower to be an expert in the field of neuro-oncology, correct?
Yes.
Now, fast forwarding 3 years in the future to determination, did you at any time discuss that issue of that Pam McMurray raised about Dr. Schwartz allegedly practicing outside of his expertise? Did you discuss that issue at all with Julie Jackson or Sue Oliver or anybody who was involved in the decision to terminate Dr. McMurray?
No, I did not.
Did you discuss any issue concerning or any issue that Dr. McMurray might have raised at that September 2014 meeting concerning Dr. Schwartz not being board certified with anybody, including Julie Jackson or Sue Oliver or anybody who was contributing towards that termination decision at all? Did you discuss that issue at all?
No, I did not.
Okay. And for the record, you do not have anything in front of you, right?
I do not have anything in front of me.
And Attorney Plantica showed you responding to Exhibit 44, which was the email. We don't need to go to it, but it was the email that Karen Colchin had sent to Julie Jackson on October 4th, 2017. Could we, Judge, please show the exhibit, responding Exhibit 39 to the witness?
Okay, I think it's just 2 pages.
I'm not seeing it pop up like it.
Oh, sorry. I did it again. I forgot to hit share. There you go. It should be Exhibit 39 now. Do you see that?
I do. Thank you, Judge. Ms. Hubbard, Attorney Plantica was referring to that earlier email that Karen Colchin had, Dr. Colchin sent to Julie Jackson and had the attachment of the medical staff policy. You're familiar with that?
Yes.
You recall that line of questioning?
Yes, I do.
This email chain dated October 20th, 2017, so 16 days after that email between Dr. Colchin and Julie Jackson. Your interpretation of this information in the this email chain is that Dr. Colchin firmly believed that Dr. McMurray's behavioral issues presented an HR problem, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, that's all I have.
Anything else, Attorney Plantinga?
Yes, I'd like to, you were not at the November 2 meeting, correct?
No,
Ms. Hubbard?
no, I was not.
Okay. And in fact, that meeting was scheduled well before then. In other words, originally it was thought that there would be a meeting before November 2 to inform Dr. McMurray that she was terminated, right?
I do not know when that was going to take place.
Did anyone reach out to you to ask about your schedule prior to November 2?
I wasn't going to participate, so I don't think my schedule came into play. I think it was the schedule of Sue Oliver, who was going to participate in the termination meeting, and I believe she had a conflict.
Wouldn't it be you and Sue Oliver who were tasked with this meeting originally?
The meeting originally was always tasked to be, I was never participating in the termination meeting. It was Sue Oliver and Julie. We were perhaps going to have a conversation as to how the meeting was going to, when that's going to take place. But I was not going to be part of that meeting. The termination meeting.
Could I see Respondent Exhibit 33, please?
Sure.
And that's at 145 of 777.
Okay.
This talks about, this is an email. Well, it's a scheduling email by Karen Coulter. You see, thanks, Karen.
No,
Karen
it's Karen Ellison.
Karen Ellison scheduled the meeting, it looks like.
Okay. And it says next week will remain scheduled with both Suzanne and Inico unless you advise otherwise. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
And so was it originally, it was your intent to attend that termination meeting?
I don't think it was ever my intent. I don't know why this was. I think Karen made a mistake to include me. I was never going to be part of that meeting.
Was there ever a meeting scheduled with Dr. McMurray prior to November 2, leading up maybe in the October timeframe, where she would be able to confront some of these accusations or the information that you were gathering?
I am not aware of it. It looks like there may have been a meeting scheduled for October 20th, and that was canceled according to this particular email chain. It says canceled Pam McMurray.
Okay.
That's all
So,
I said.
and it looks like it was canceled because of scheduling conflicts, right?
Sue scheduling conflict, correct.
And did you ever hold a meeting involving Pam McMurray to give her a chance to explain before the termination decision was made?
I did not know.
Wouldn't that be part of just culture? If someone was bringing accusations against a long-term employee that was going to result in termination, you would get that employee's side of what happened, just in case that you read it wrong or got the wrong information?
We had evidence of behavior that was a pattern, and there was no need to have an additional meeting.
You had not met with Pam McMurray yourself since 2014, correct?
That's correct.
And in the October timeframe, you're not aware of Sue Oliver or Julie Jackson meeting with Pam McMurray to get her side of what some people, like Neva Schwartz example, were saying, correct? You're not aware of any of those meetings.
I'm not.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Any other questions, Attorney Mitchell?
Just a couple. Ms. Hubbard, to your knowledge, there's no HR policy at ProHealth Care mandating that HR or an HR representative meet with the subject of a disciplinary investigation prior to rendering any discipline, correct?
That is correct. We're an at-will state.
And you stated during you testified during direct examination that it is the policy, though, of the HR department to corroborate the evidence linked to any investigation of any disciplinary investigation of an employee, correct?
That is correct.
And whether it be information collected by Sue Oliver, your lieutenant of sorts in HR, or Julie Jackson through her sources, at the end of the day, you were satisfied with sufficient corroborating evidence warranting termination of Dr. McMurray.
I was.
Nothing further from me.
Anything else, Attorney Plantinga?
Yeah, obviously you're familiar with it. This is an at-will state, right?
Yes.
And that sort of means that you can fire someone for any reason or no reason at all, correct?
That's what it means.
Okay. But because you want to promote a just culture, the phrase your organization uses, you don't just go bare bones. You try to be fair in all respects, correct?
That is why we did an investigation.
Okay, no, that's not my question. My question is that you don't have to be fair under the at-will policy, right? Could be any reason.
Our organization believes to be fair and thorough in an investigation.
Okay. And part of gathering that information is corroboration, but it might also be to get the person who may be disciplined their side of the story, right? Because you might learn something that could factor into your decision to be fair, right?
Sure, it could be.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Anything else for the witness, Attorney Mitchell?
No, Judge, not for me.
All right. Thank you for your testimony, Ms. Huberts. You're free to leave the meeting. Thanks for participating this afternoon.
Thank you.
Thanks, Eltica.
Thank you.
I just want to make sure, Attorney Mitchell, any other witnesses?
No.
And Attorney Plantinga, did you want to do any kind of rebuttal?
Could I have 5 minutes to discuss
Sure.
with Dr. McMurray, and then I'll come right back up.
All right, sounds good.
Okay.
We're back on the record after taking a short break. Attorney Plantinga has stated off the record that he's not planning on putting in any rebuttal evidence. We also had some conversations off the record. Both parties would like a copy of the hearing recordings, and I'll make sure that both sides get those recordings. We also just discussed whether to do post-hearing briefings, and I think both sides have said that that's not something, that they are requesting, and I typically don't require it, so I'm not going to ask either side to do that then at this point. I did note, though, that there was 2 exhibits that were introduced today that I just want to make sure. One was the meeting note that we were just talking about, R33. Attorney Plantinga, were you going to move that into evidence?
Yes, I would.
And Attorney Mitchell, any objections?
No objection.
All right, so then R33 is received. And then the other document was, I believe, from this morning. It was Complainants Exhibit 20. Let me just bring that one up on the screen real quick. It was this email thread. I think, I'm not even sure. I think it was maybe with Neva that was introduced, but I'm not entirely sure if it wasn't with Jessica Searcher as well. But Attorney Plantinga, did you want to move that into evidence?
I think it's already in, but
I think it was,
in some other form.
but I
Yeah.
don't remember if that has this email as well about from Julie Jackson. And I don't recall
Yes.
if that's in the other email. It might be duplicative, but I think that's what your questioning was of this morning, was that second email from Julie to Neva.
I think the
Yes,
bottom
yes.
portion is included in the other exhibit. And then there's Neva's email, and the top portion from Julie Jackson is, I believe, what distinguishes the two exhibits.
Okay. Were you going to move it into evidence nonetheless, Attorney Plantinga?
Yes, I will.
Okay, and did you
Yes,
have
I
any
will.
objections, Attorney Mitchell?
No objection.
All right. So then I will receive that document as well. Everything else that we've already covered with the exhibits between yesterday and then as Attorney Mitchell was moving them into evidence. Is there anything else that either party wanted to put on the record at this point?
In my discussions with Dr. McMurray, and sort of embarrassed to say I don't know the answer to this, she asked if the complaint is part of the file that you consider, and she wanted it to be. And I honestly don't know the answer to that question or not. I know that ALJs sometimes read the probable cause decision to sort of see what the issues are, but I don't know how anything else gets transmitted or not.
Yeah, I mean, I think officially it's not unless someone introduces it as an exhibit.
That's my understanding.
So are you at this point asking that the complaint be an exhibit as well?
I would.
Is that included in any of the exhibits?
I don't think it is.
Then I would object to.
I asked Neil to include it, so.
Hey, I'm not
All right.
not denying it. We got 70 of them.
Yeah, let me just double check because I know there was some like your discovery responses and things like that too. I don't know which side submitted some of that, if that was part of it at all.
Can't look.
I mean, frankly, I don't have an issue receiving it just because, I mean, it's the complaint. I know there wasn't any direct questions about it, but I would be hard to say that anybody would be shocked to know that the complaint might be part of the record in a hearing. And that's typically what the requirement for disclosing documents prior to the hearing is to address, is that there's no surprise to a party.
It also identifies the basis.
Right. Let me just, I mean, yeah, I can include it as an exhibit. Let me look. As you said, I think you had 70 exhibits, so it'll just be exhibit 71.
Okay.
Was there anything else, Attorney Plantinga, you wanted to address?
No, thank you.
Attorney Mitchell, anything else you wanted to address?
No. Thank you,
All
Jim.
right, then I will go ahead and close out the record. I try to get my hearing decisions out within about 3 months. Sometimes it goes a little bit longer. Sometimes it comes out a little bit earlier. It all depends on just kind of what my schedule's like. And I know I have a few hearings before this that I need to get decisions out for. But hopefully, like I said, within 3 months or so, I'll get the decision out. If anybody's contact information changes before that, just let us know. Either contact me directly or contact our main office and just update your addresses so that the decision gets out to the parties in a timely fashion then.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Judge.
Well, thank you everybody for
Thank you.
joining me the last 2 days. I appreciate all your work and effort, and take care and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks. with